Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. I am your humble host, Mr. David Knoll, also known as Hawkeye Two Feathers, and I greet you with the love and the honor of the infinite Creator. And I continue to pray that each and every day, that each and every one of you continue to learn how to accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, the wisdom, and the many blessings from the universe. And with that said, how are you today, tonight, or wherever you are? So, the subject for this particular topic, hey, Chloe and Witch Moon, um, I'm, am I oriented in the right way? My appointment went very well. I passed. My left eye has an 11, and my right eye has a 10. The right eye was done first. The left eye was done a week ago. Yeah, basically a week ago. And so the pressure in my eyes is good, and the suture stitches thingies that they use are doing well in my left eye, and so the cataracts are out, and everything is much brighter. I mean, much brighter. Um, it my right eye has a little bit of issue with focusing sometimes. It's not clear right off, and I got to kind of like wink, blink to see. And but it clears up, and usually, and it's like I was telling a friend of mine today. I said it's like you're looking through a pair of binoculars, and you've got the focus in, and you can see the object really well and everything, but it's just not quite crystal clear. It's almost there, but not quite. That's my right eye. My left eye, boom, it's there. Boom, shakalaka. But there, I have no complaints. And talking with the doctor lady, I was like, so, it's only been basically, well, it's 3 weeks on this eye now. One, 3 Wednesdays ago, 2 Wednesdays ago. Anyway, on the fourth. And this one's only been 1 week. So it's like, okie dokie. It takes a little while for things to heal and things to settle in. So that was what I was talking about. I said, hey, doc, my guess is it's going to take at least, 1 to 2 months of just, being careful to make sure that everything settles in. And she goes, yeah, sometimes 3 months. Which after any kind of surgery, 3 months is really not a long time, especially since I'm still dealing with back pain after 3.5 years, so it's like, okie doke. But anyway, but the fact that I can see very clearly, and it's amazing how much the cataracts are really messing with my eyesight. So happy, happy, joy, joy. Cheers on that one. So, which got me into looking at my different eyes. Like this eye is not quite clear, but this one, well, this one's not quite clear now. Maybe it's because of my pipe. But anyway, got to be careful with that too. It's like, well, my eyes ain't working right. Well, you've had a bowl. It could be that you're Nah, not me. No, 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 no. I can see clearly now. But anyway, but I was using different vernaculars, after seeing with my right eye how clear everything was, and then look at through my left eye and go, "Holy crap!" It's like looking through a pair of sunglasses. So with that, it sort of stimulated like. So this whole time, my reality has sort of been. I've been making it up, right? Well, no, not really. Well, yeah, my my eyes, because of the way they were, um, my brain was compensating. So not to beat a dead horse, but the trick with the paper towels, it was like my right eye was seeing the whiteness of the paper towel. My left eye was looking at it going, it's a brown paper bag. The color change difference. So, but it's like, so in looking at those two different realities, both realities were true at the same time. Okay. And you go, well, wait a minute, what are you talking about? So, right eye was seeing true white, but my left eye was seeing true white also because my brain had been conditioned to, because of the fog in my eyes. But my brain had been convinced that the beige was white because of bad eyesight, right? So, but it's what the brain convinced itself of being, the colors and so forth. So it's like, now that was just interesting. So in that scenario of thinking about along those lines and stuff, and it's like, well, imagination and your brain's making this up. And then I was having some weird dreams. Well, I've been having weird dreams here recently with all these strange energies coming through. And I've been known to have some weird dreams anyway. So the topic of weird dreams and where do dreams come from is, it's an old topic, all right? But it's an old topic now, which for me is a whole new twist. You know, I've had my eyes done, things are much brighter. There is the the lessons that I went through in left eye, right eye, brighter, darker, the brain making up for it, those kinds of things. And dreams. Okay, so dreams. Well, I remember when I was working all the time, it was easy to have a dream about working on something. Or when I was doing a lot of plays and directing and stuff, it was easy to have dreams about a play that we were rehearsing, going through lines. Um, Many times, for me, I was afraid of, being able to remember my lines while I was on stage, and just, you know, so it's like dreams. So those dreams were anchored with something. And you go, what do you mean anchored with something? Well, anchored in a reality. I was working on a play. There was a lot of, stuff, different things, and so my subconscious put together this dream. All right. So there was a home for the dream, if you will, right? There was sustenance to create the dream from, right? Well, I haven't been involved with anything in like 10 years, over 10 years, right? No theater, no outside events per se, um, nothing to like really stimulate my brain. Now, my sister and I went to Ohio. That's been within the last 10 years. Um, I had a roommate, she's gone. That's been within the last 10 years. My friend Marcia, um, passed away within the last 10 years. So there, my friend Serge, he passed away within the last 10 years. Other people, my brother just passed away. So there's been things that have happened, right, that stimulate, especially us old folk, into what's going on. So I, I I'm bringing these things up because my friend Martha and I, so dreams of when we went and did these crazy things, right, when she was alive. And so dreams of my brother, we went fishing, when we went camping, when we did stuff together. So there is a basis for the dream. There's memories, right? But now the dreams that I had about 2 years ago of driving a spaceship. Where did I come up with that scenario? Well, wait a minute, Dave. Hawkeye, you were doing what? Yeah, I was driving a spaceship, you know. And it's really nice on the inside. Everything was well lit, but not too bright, and I'm riding in a spaceship, right? A sport model, it appears, and really good view out the front window. Um, but as far as I know, I've not ever been in a spaceship, right? And from the interior panel and everything, maybe I dreamed it up from watching Star Trek and, different types of movies and things. But the layout of the panel in front of me and how I was driving it, I don't remember ever seeing in any movie. Okay. So the layout, the panel, everything, I'm in a spaceship. All right. So I have picked that up from a movie. I would agree. But how I was driving it and what the display panel in front of me looked like and what it felt like while I was sitting in that chair, um, I didn't feel like I was in a shuttle from on Star Trek, because of the chairs and the way there. I didn't feel like I was, there's a lot of different um, movies and series that I've watched over the years. And after the event of having driven this spaceship, and not just once, but it over a couple of weeks, I flew in this spaceship several times. Okay, just saying. And I still don't know where I got the information for me to be driving a spaceship. Cheers. Where could I have gotten that kind of route, that route information for me to dream that I was driving a spaceship, a sport model? I don't know. So, all right, well, that's just one thing. There was, um, I was having a reoccurring dream, um, sitting in a park, blanket laid out. There's a picnic. There's a pond. There's ducks on the pond. It's a municipal type of park. I'm laying out on my side, resting on my elbow. There's a female on the blanket with me. I'm assuming is my partner or wife or something. I don't think she's my sister. Um, there's in one of the dreams there was a young girl. Then in another of the dreams, same park, same scenario. I'd be wearing different shirt. Wifey would be wearing different clothes. Um, it might be early spring. It might be autumn in another dream, but it was always in the same park. So it's like, so I don't recognize the park. Now, when I lived in Tampa, there were a lot of parks in Tampa. There are a lot of parks in Tampa. And, I'm thinking, well, it could have been that park. Nah, no, that it ain't that park. And well, maybe I was at a park in Tampa, and so from the scenario of being in a park, I have created this park in my dream. Did you recognize the woman? Um, Let me say that at the time, you know, I haven't had that particular dream in a while. I'm wait, I've had dreams of being in the park, like sitting on a bench, or was walking, and it always has to do with the pond, the little lake in the background. So it's sort of like a reference. Um, but when I looked at her, she was familiar. And so at the time, it honestly felt like I was in two places at one time. It I it did not feel like a dream. When I was in the dream, it felt so real. Could breathe the air, could smell, breathe the air. I could smell the air. I could, hear conversation. I could hear children playing ball and kickball, in the background. Hey, Miss Pearl, I was thinking about you. I know I say this every time, but it's true. I was thinking about last night. Yep, last night. I went outside to do my look up at the star kind of thing every time. And I was like, wonder how Miss Pearl's doing. So, but anyway, good to see you. Cheers, baby. So, but with the dreams, it's like, so, and my point in all of this is that I can understand having dreams about certain things, but that there's something in my daily routine or in my life or something good, Pearl. There's something in my life that, I've met someone, we talked about something, and then I had a dream about this. But when you dream about, for example, there was this cabin that I dreamed about up in the mountains. I used to go to the mountains up north Georgia and that little corner up there in Georgia, Tennessee, um, North South Carolina up in there. So, but there was this cabin, and I was assuming because I'd made so many trips up there that this cabin was up there. But I have made only a couple of trips to Arkansas, and stayed up in the Ozarks and along the Buffalo River and so forth. But nothing really felt like it was the Ozarks. I've had dreams that were related to the Ozarks, and it felt like the Ozarks, but the other ones were like I'm in the mountains. Well, it must be North Georgia or, or Western North Carolina or Tennessee, that corner up there. But it felt more like North Georgia, having been up there a bunch of times. But the cabin, okay. Uh, I've stayed in a couple of cabins over the years. Nothing looked familiar like inside this cabin. Okay, I could have dreamed it up. Um, Maybe I saw it in a movie. Okay. Maybe I saw it while flipping through, Log Cabins or Us. and seen a picture of what this cabin looked like. Okay. But then to be in the log cabin and like look up at the ceiling and to see the beams and like, whoa, man, that is just something. And go, you know, in the dream, right? Because that's the kind of person that I am. I'm looking at the architecture, right? I'm like, wow, that's a big old beam, and I wonder how long that is. And I'm cogitating it in my head. So in my head, I'm wondering, am I dreaming this? In the dream, I'm wondering, am I dreaming this? Man, that's a big old log. What? So because I'm thinking of the one of the state parks in Tennessee I was in, and that beautiful built with some humongous logs and things, and big fireplace in it. Oh, and the food was good at the restaurant too. them, them biscuits. I talked about them many years ago, but them biscuits was good. And they'd always give me the leftovers at the end of the evening because I asked. So, but okay. So I'm talking about these specific things. So I could see where this the specific places that I have visited, that I could cobble up these memories to dream up somewhere else. Okay. Okay. But what about, dreaming that you're on a steamship, or dreaming that you're on a clipper ship, with the sails and the thing and and the waves breaking over the bow, and it's sort of like being a pirate, or a merchant marine, or and it's like, okay, so I've seen Pirates of the Caribbean. I've been on a sailboat, a 21 footer in some high seas and a storm, and the waves breaking over the bow. Okay, I have done that, but I've not been on a big schooner ship. You know, um, when I lived in Tampa, went by the Jose Gaspar ship that they have for Gasparilla every year, and but never was able to go on it at the time, but just walked along the dock and saw it sitting there. So, but I've not been around a bunch of large ships or anything. I've always wanted to. It is a dream of mine to go on a ship like that. At least a one master, two master, a three master would be sweet. But um, and a week's cruise in the Caribbean, sailing around, just you know sailing around. But so where did my brain put together this swashbuckling on a ship, you know like looking for Moby Dick kind of thing? you know all right, I've read a book, and the author was so good that they described things in such a way that I was able to visualize what that author was trying to convey, especially in like some monster on another planet, like Robert Heinlein, described. So, um, okay, I can imagine those things, but that would be a core for where your dreams come from. All right. But what about a dream that, I drove through the desert 2 days, and literally drove through the desert, and that wasn't like I was out playing baseball in it or nothing. um but that would not necessarily give me impetus to, like, I've been on a trail on horseback for days, and I'm dusting, dust brush the dust off with my hat kind of thing, like in a cowboy. Never done that. I've seen a bunch of cowboy movies, but in the dreams, you could smell the dust. You had dust in your nostrils, right? It was like you dusted off with your hat and you, whew, oh man. And you could see it, look down, see it, see, you know, it wasn't that you just were observing the dream. You are observing and participating in the dream. Physically walking across the dusty street, physically tying your horse up to the hitching post, you know. And it's like, but I've never done any of that. I went to Six Gun Territory back in the day in Silver Springs, you know, around Ocala, Florida. Um, Went to a Six Gun Territory kind of thing up in North Georgia. But okay. I, but no, not been out in the desert knocking the dust up, none of that stuff. So where did I get the core of that from? Must have watched a movie. Okay, I'll buy that. Really, I'll buy that. But then where did I get the? I have only been on a horse a couple of times in my lifetime, let alone ride into town, you know, let alone, you know, get off of it like I know what I'm doing, you know. Also, the smell and the taste of the dust. I've been in dusty situations, but getting off the horse, it's the combination of all the above, right? Okay, enough of that. How come I'm dreaming of being I'm on another planet? How come I'm having dreams of being um, in groups and having conversation with non-human people? Where am I getting that from? Where am I getting the inside of the spaceship from? And the texture and the smell, and it's like, well, you know, it's like air conditioning, like, you know, with all these different aliens from different places in the universe, you know, it doesn't smell like a cattle trough. Oh my God, did I say that out loud? You know, well, there are droppings on the floor from one of these critters, you know. Oh, wait, that was their camel. But still, you know, there's wooftiness to it, right? How come those old factories come into play during a dream? Being on a spaceship and with some aliens camel, you know, defecated on the promenade, you know, of Deep Space 10. So okay, I have a vivid imagination. I have worked on a farm of sorts, you know. I have shoveled a bunch of dung from horses, mostly. I have been around cows. Um, you know, it was several years that I worked around on the horse farm, doing minor chores and things. So, did I bring that with me? Nah, because I would recognize the horse smell. This didn't smell like horses. I've been around on a pig farm. Pigs can really stink. All right. I've had ducks, which really stink. And so, wait, it was a combination between duck poop and wait a minute. I'm trying to describe what the feces smelled like from an imaginary animal on a spaceship. You know, wait a minute. But the amount of detail, smelling, seeing, the presence of being, sitting in a chair and watching folks go by and sipping a drink or whatever it is, and the feeling of being in it. And then, well, that's one thing, the feeling of being in the dream. But where in the fudge did I come up with the setting, the scenario, the alien beings? Who is this person that I keep having a picnic with? And who are the little kids running around? I don't know if I'm their daddy or not. It feels like more like I'm their uncle or something, but I don't know. Um, and other dreams, right? So having had conversation with a lot of folk over the years about dreams and stuff, and having done a lot of tripping, which are like wide awake dreams, you know, some of them very much so, like, and the dream goes on. So how did I end up out in the universe with some being a part of some type of Mandela type wheel, a medicine wheel, if you will, out in space somehow, on another planet, but I'm assuming because it didn't feel like Earth, right? So where am I? I'm on another planet doing sort of Native American type things on another planet, having to do with medicine wheels and having to do with orientations and having to do with honor of that particular planet we were on, that all planets, all things have vibrations, all types of rocks and stuff. Everything's deals with vibrations. So it was the honoring of vibrations somewhere out in another area of space. Where did that dream come from? Did I'm dreaming it because but here's the thing. I'd be in some rolling hills or something, and I've been in a lot of places, uh, Arkansas has got some really nice rolling hill events. There's some nice rolling hill events around this area. You have to look for them, but they're here. They're beautiful. Um, but the dreams never felt like what's around here or what I have experienced here. Sometimes it's like, wow, man, I feel like I'm in Brooks County. And, there's a place in Brooks County that's got this, ooh, I feel like I'm none of that, right? That's when I'm in it, I go, I wonder where the fudge I am. Wow, this is really pretty, but it's familiar to me, but I don't know where I'm at. So same thing with events. You're having conversations with people. Just saying, there was a time when I felt like I had gone to the White House. Have never been to Washington, D.C. I used to watch the West Wing, East Wing, South Wing, whatever it was. Um, and there were times when I felt so close to the discussion that I was like, man, I wonder what it's like to be in the Oval Office. You know, me like an architecture and everything, and having been a draftsman and so forth. And, I wonder what it would be like to sit in there with a sketch pad and just sketch the rooms. It's one thing to take a picture, it's another thing to sit and sketch a room with details and lines and the molding and stuff like that, right? And to be able to try to, pencil that in and just a pencil and paper, right? So wait a minute. I'm sitting in the Oval Office. There's no president, but I'm in there, and the president's nearby. I don't know which one it is, by the way. I think it was Bill Clinton. Um, I did not have sexual relations with that woman. She just, sucked on my cigar. Um, but there was the incidence of why did I have a dream that I was sitting with a drawing pad in the Oval Office while the president was in the next room. And I had slipped in this pad and paper because for some reason it was against the rules. And I had lagged behind so that I could sketch it. And I didn't want to get caught by the Secret Service. And there was all this panic and whatever because I'm in the Oval Office and I'm sketching, and somebody's going to think I'm trying to steal the national secret. And all I want to do is just sketch the room, right? So, but there are dreams like that. But the thing is that they're so real. It isn't just, well, you're in the, no, it is so real. That's the point. Now, knowing quite well that, Dave ain't going to be sitting in the Oval Office. Now, this was years ago. This has not been recent or anything. But at the time, it was real as beans. Different places that I was at. I've never been to New York City. But there was a series of dreams I was having at one particular time. And I believe that I was in Tampa on the streets and the alleys being a bum. But I was making the connection that I was in New York City. Okay. I was in Chicago for 2 days, way back in like 1972. Actually, it was 71. It was the Christmas of 71 into 72. But so I got to see what it was like, at 30 below with howling snow, and stayed right down there on LaSalle Street. And got a chance I wanted to walk around, even though it was snowy and icy and everything. I wanted to get the feel of what Chicago was like. It was too damn cold for anybody to be out, right? And in the middle of the night, and I find this little bar, and I go into this bar, and smoke filled, the at the time, she was a 55-year-old woman with a drink in her hand and a cigarette, singing show tunes and stuff, and a piano player on, that was probably like Billy Joel in his day or whatever, as far as being a piano player and having a gig. So, but I loved it. And at the time, I wasn't 21. So it's like, but I could buy a drink and nobody cared. And even though I looked like I looked like a little kid, but sat back in the back and had a little bit of money and tipped the lady because she sang a good song. And I had a couple of drinks and smoked a half a pack of cigarettes. And I'm not sure if I had any weed or not. I think I smoked a joint on the way down to the bar, but I didn't have anything on me because I was afraid to get caught. But so then after it was like 5 o'clock in the morning, time to go, time to go. But I remember it well, being in a smoky bar in Chicago, you know, um, 3 days before Christmas with a bunch of not degenerates, but people who were up at 4 in the morning in Chicago, you know, as cold as it was and everything. And so, but anyway, um, but I have dreamt of being in a situation like that. But the bar was very elaborate, right? This bar that I was in was just like one room that just went straight back, right? And the bar along one wall and tables and the at the end of the bar was where the piano and the it wasn't really a stage. It was more like a box she stood on, and I went to the far back corner to watch and listen. But that was that. So, but I have been in places where the bar was very elaborate. Um, like there was a Western movie, I can't remember which one, but the bar was beautiful. Man, all the everything in the bar was beautiful. And of course there was double doors leading into the dining room next door to the bar and all that kind of stuff. And walking through and it was sort of like I was in 1918 kind of thing after the First World War. Um, After the Spanish American War, after, um, and I'm in this bar and the gloriousness, the mirrors and, the portraits on the walls and the woodwork. And I've never been in a bar like that. So where do our dreams come from? There are people who have dreamt on being on the moon. There are people who are who are remembering the 20 and back. Now, I do not wish to try to defraud anyone, but 20 and back has always bothered me because these folks have shared memories at times. And I'm wondering if their shared memories might have something to do with something else. I don't know what else. But the 20 and back to Mars and such, I'm just like, well, then there was Andy Basiago, something who, you know, went in the jump rooms to to Mars. And was that a dream for them? Did they dream all that? Or, but they recollect things. But what if what they have imagined as being so real to them that as being a dream? No, no, no. I was really there. Yeah, I was really on that spaceship too. I'm telling you, I was driving that thing. I'm not sure where I was headed, but I was driving that spaceship. Sitting in, but no, it did not have a steering wheel, which I was looking down going, no steering wheel. you know, there were things that my personality, like now, like looking around going, where's the steering wheel? You know, was out of context for me being in the spaceship thingy, right? Now there have been times like where it felt like I had traded places with someone, like on the blanket in the park. So I feel like, wait a minute, I'd come back to this reality and go, I was just in the park on at the picnic again. Now I'm here in my house, and what the fudge? And it feels so real, right? So, and other things, other places like that. Now, but my biggest thing is here recently, I've been having these weird dreams of other places and doing things that there's nothing that I can associate in my in this world of experience, and I've done a bunch of stuff, right? That none of this fits anything. It's like, where did you learn how to, how to fly, or when did you learn how to, doing such and such? Um, just what? So where do these dreams come from? Okay, I could see making them up. I'm not going to rehash that. But I can see where we can make things up from our surroundings, from our experiences. But what about the dreams that aren't connected to any experience? Like the dreams I've had of heavenly events, being out of body and having been different places and being able to feel how real they are, having been in space and looked out upon, across the galaxies, and just like, where did I've not even seen pictures of this or a movie or nothing. This is just like, no, it was very real. It was very crystal clear, but I did not have the experience that I'm aware of, at least, right? Where do our where do these dreams come from? Now, I believe that there are things out in the quantum, in the universe, in this energy that's all around us, and there are people who are trying to, hey, F Kitty, there are folks that are trying to say, oh, if you believe in this quantum reality stuff, you're trying to promote the devil and all this. Oh man, it's a non-Christian thing to promote this. Oh man. So I've been talking about the quantum reality and the cosmic goo because I was shown this years ago during my, you know, um, Mother Mary incidents and stuff. And so I took it to heart for myself. And then later on, as things went along, it's like, well, wait a minute. So this seems more real than not. But now there are folks, oh, you can't believe in that kind of stuff. There are demons out there that, listen, there are demons within the Catholic Church that are trying to teach you stuff. Don't even go there. Um, they're saying that you can't take a shortcut to God. You can't be like deer and just go up Sacred Mountain. No, you can't do that. You're not allowed to just go talk to God yourself. You have to go through religion. You have to go through a priest. You know, you have to do these things to qualify because we are not qualified to talk to God directly, right? And well, but God is everywhere. Jesus is all around. Whoa, yeah, well, he might be all around, but you can't talk to him. You don't have the special code. Okay. So back when I was having religious issues, trying to understand the different levels of God, if you will, and just having conversations with some kind of spirit, um, I would consider it now, but back then I was angelic of sorts, a spirit guide, walking along and just having conversation. And, but that how clear it is that with the quantum business, that when we have the right frequency, we can talk with or to someone on the other side of the solar system or the galaxy in real time. Like, hi, how you doing? Fine. How you doing there? What's the weather like on Argos 9? You know, oh, it's a little muggy. The real feel is 522, microdots or something. Okay. Microdots? Microdecibels. Okay, where did I come up with that? All right. So, but there are ideas, in my humble opinion, that just literally come from the universe, right? I've had stories back when I was doing puppets. I would dream up stories and then convert them to and with the puppets. Um, there were other things that I created along with the stories. And where did I come up with it? I just came up with it. Where'd the idea come from? Out there. Well, where'd you get this idea? Well, I was just thought about one thing, and there was the idea for this story, about the porcupine and what characters and how I was gonna do the porcupine and how it made all the children laugh and about wet themselves, and some of them did wet themselves. But porcupine, gonna get me some porcupine. And so, but where did I come up with the idea? And from the universe, right? I'm just like I need a story, and I need it to be sort of, and I got to be able to do it, and it's got to be upbeat, and the kids got to got to be able to laugh, and I got to be able to ad lib it at some point, which is my want to do all the time, ad lib, and so it's like stick with story, Dave. But this I could stick with the story and still ad lib. And if the kids are laughing their butt off, I can go one more round. you know Sometimes you can't do it, and sometimes you could go three or four more times around and the kids are still laughing, right? So anyway, um but I got to come up with an idea, and I'm going to be in this venue and at some the garden club ladies or something up at the Albany, place. And then there's some other something. And okay. And then when you get there, there's like 10 people, you know, and you're on a stage. I got you set up, and there's 10 people. And I would take my stuff off the stage, put it down on the floor, and change everything up. I could tell some of the story of the porcupine to this smaller audience, and it'd be effective. Now you say, Dave, what are you talking about this for? Because it's in the universe of things, you have an idea. And the idea was to have a story about a porcupine. Okay, did so. And I had it for this venue, went to the venue. And then there was only 10 people at the venue. And then it's like, and the feedback from the kids is a lot to do with how this story works, right? And so with only 10 kids, the feedback was like this. And so I had to generate it myself to keep the story going, to keep the momentum going. And but at the end, they still liked the story. They still laughed. But for me, it was a letdown. But the thing is, I had to adapt at that moment. Where did I get this idea to adapt this right then? I got the idea right then from the universe. Walking there on the stage and looking around, going, this ain't going to work. you know, going on enough experience of traveling around, this ain't going to work. I need to change up here. So, okay, universe, and I would say this out loud. Okay, universe, what do I need to do to change this up? And ideas would come from the universe. Ideas just come from the universe. Yep. And a lot more than once or twice, right? Bunches of times. I did puppet shows for over 15 years. And I traveled, and sometimes I'd do 2, 3 shows in one day at different venues. So you had to adapt. What has that got to do with dreams? Because I would dream of a venue. Well, I've been to this library before, and I know what it's like to set up. So I'm doing like Lizard. I'm dreaming the future before I get there, before I manifest it. So I'm dreaming, been in this library. They've always put me down this one end. They've always set up such, and then you get there, and they've got a whole new room. They built an extra wing on the library or something, and you go in and you go, where am I? And it's totally different than the dream that you dream. For me, because I would walk through I would rehearse it in my head right before I went, or even on the way, I'd be driving there going, I'd pull around to the back door and the thing and da da da. And then you get there and no, they want you to come through the front. And now that door is locked and and so things are different. So what you dreamed is not what you thought. So it's like, well, wait a minute, but you dreamed it. You've been there before. This is what happened before. So in the day or two before doing these things, you've been there before. This is what it was like. This is how the kids reacted. So it should be similar. And then you get there and it's totally different. So what happened to the universe? Did you misread it? Was it that I didn't pick up what was going to actually happen when I got to these venues? When it would be so totally different? Um, but wait a minute now. You've been there before. You put this together, and this is what it's gonna. Nope. Then there are the places you've never been, and you try to picture it, and it don't work. But then when you get there, this dream sort of unfolds, and you go, "Whoa, this is going to work," or "Whoa, this is better than I expected," or worse than I expected at times. But you just do the best you can, right? You draw upon the universe to help you come up and dream up and take care of whatever it is on the spot. But where does that come from? Same place the dreams come from. That's why I was discussing this. We have ideas about things. Oh, we're decorating this room for a dance and in honor of Umpty Scrunch, and we're putting up, different swirly cues and hanging things from the lights. And well, does Umpty Scrunch even like this kind of stuff? No. Well, then why are you hanging this stuff from the ceiling? You don't like that kind of thing. Well, but we do, and we want it to look nice, and we want it to be special. But it's like, okay. Well, Umpty Scrunch comes, and he was like, well, I never would have dreamed, right? Because he wasn't dreaming what they were dreaming, you see. His dream was just a cafeteria with some lighting and some things on the centerpieces on the tables. Hey, howdy, Steve. And so you go, well, that's what I felt like. That's what I dreamed. That's what I felt like it was going to be like. Then you get there and it's not like that at all. So there are a lot of times that I spent wondering, dreaming what something was going to be like. Well, we're going to have a meeting on Friday, and the big boys are coming in from Ford Motor, and they're going to be discussing. And man, are we going to get our ass chewed out, or who's going to get fired, or we're going to lose a contract, or and for 3 days, you get an ulcer in anticipation of what the meeting's going to be when the big guys from Ford get here, and so and in your mind you're dreaming up stuff, right? Dreaming up scenarios. How many people are going to be there? What are we going to have for lunch? Are they going to serve soft pretzels? Where's the mustard? Who knows about soft pretzels and mustard around here? But anyway, wasted dreams. Dreams that you're trying to pick up out there in the future, like Lizard. Lizard's got two sets of eyelids, and he's got the first set closed, and he's thinking about it. He's not asleep. He's dreaming the future. So how many of us have dreamed the future? But where does that come from? Well, that comes from things that we've observed. Well, if it's something at our workplace, well, it obviously has something to do with our workplace, right? And it's attached to that, and it's around that. And so there is a core that we can have for the basis of our dream. But if you're going to dream about Umpty Scrunch in a party, and you're out in the middle of a field, and a flying saucer lands beside him, and and aliens come out to join the party. I had a similar dream about this years ago, and it was at Pebble Hill Plantation, of all places. Good God Almighty. But there was this spaceship that flew around, and it had a loudspeaker kind of thing, and we're from such and such, and somebody up there said, "Wow, they're having a party down there." And next thing we know, this spaceship lands, and they get out, and hi, how you doing? And um, no, I had been to Pebble Hill. I had done puppet shows out there in this field, and was being invited to go back. Lovely place, good money, and had a good time too. Never saw any aliens though. But why aliens at this venue at Pebble Hill? I mean, it's one thing for me to dream up aliens, period. But it was so specific, aliens at Pebble Hill at this event on Sunday. Like what? So I know for the last hour I've been talking about me and dreams, but because I have I can't relate other folks' dreams that have had with me or that they've had, but folks have come up with the oddest of things. Like me, I found myself in that setting a month later and about dove under the table expecting what? An earthquake. Oh yeah, earthquake things. Um, and see, having been in caves before, especially down here in South Georgia, I remember the time that the lights went out on all our flashlights. And I'd always carried matches, a lighter, and candles, and couldn't get the candles lit. Everything, everything's wet in that cave. And, but, so being lost in the cave without any lights, especially any cave, but this one, holy mackerel, you know. But so there are core things that I could dream about. Been in a cave. Okay. So if I have a dream about a cave, there's a reference, right? Okay, well, what about, being in a submarine and something happening and well, never been in a submarine, you know. I don't know what that would be like. I've never been in the Navy. I've been in small areas with a lot of machinery, and motors and loud stuff, and that would sound like an engine room. It was an engine room of sorts, um, but it was in a building, not on a ship. So, but things that I could relate to me, machinery, mechanics, tools, something. Okay, but never been in a submarine. So where did that come from? All right. So I watched a movie. Okay. But then the smell of it, the smell of the machine oil and the smell of the dirty socks from the guys who were bunking in down there. So where does I where do our brains get the rest of this to fill in the blanks, you know? Well, you know, I'm a gardener. I have cut down a tree or two in my life, and so now I'm having dreams of being up in the tops of big giant trees, cutting limbs, and I fall out of one. Well, I've never been in great big giant trees. Well, maybe one or two, but and tried with a chainsaw, gave that up quick. But it's not like my job. But to have like at one particular time I went through like it was like a 3 or 4 week period where I was like up in the tops of trees and the limbs were falling on me and knocking me off of the ladders, and it was craziness. But where did all this grief come from? I wasn't doing any tree work at the time. Must have been, working out some kind of deal. Now, while tripping on mushrooms, there are many things that I saw live and in color. And I say in color because there were sometimes it was just black and white. And you'd be looking at something, it'd be like, it's just black and white, like a cartoon. But where does our brains come up with this stuff? How does it dream it up? How does it cogitate it? And why? Like I'm driving around in a spaceship? For what? I mean, well, this is cool, but when I was in the dream, I was like, why am I in this spaceship? What am I doing here? And there was a time, excuse me, around that same time that um, I was part of a peacekeeping envoy and was speaking at this humongous, you know, event with, literally hundreds of different alien races. And I had to speak slowly and distinctly. And I had to lay out, we are the collective of planets. How many of you really want war? We need to work on peace between all of us. We need to work on it. And so, but I could see the inside of this building, the immenseness of it, standing on this platform, going, "Son of a bitch, this is one big ass room. Look at all of the God Almighty," you know. And I was, it was going on, and I'm like, it was so real. All right, so where did I come up with this? Well, it was in one of the Star Trek movies, or I'm sorry, Star Wars movies, right? But in the Star Wars movie, this dream was like it was 10 times bigger. And, and the immenseness of it was like, it wasn't just, it was like it. I was standing there going, son, and I've been in some auditoriums, a couple of them fairly large, and McKay Auditorium in Tampa back in the day, the Monticello Opera House, different places I've been on stage. Thomasville, their stage there, and Thomasville on stage, which is a smaller stage. But, when there's 1,500 seats, it's a decent auditorium. So, but when you're standing there on stage into a large auditorium, there is that immenseness of it, if you will. You can feel the largeness or the smallness of a room, right? So, but this particular incident was like, it's huge. So, I have never been in a building that big. And so, but I could tell because I had been drawing upon smaller venues, if you will, compared to this dream. But then again, why was I dreaming that I was at this venue to begin with? What was it that the creator wanted me to do with this information? I'm giving a speech to all of these different races and places on how important it is that we learn to negotiate and to live with each other in this universe, and why it's important that we learn to live with one another in this universe. And the argument was, well, you live on the other side of the galaxy. For me, tough shit with what we do on our over here in our neighborhood, you know. So there were those kinds of conversations, and it's like, where did I even come up with that? I'm on the other side of the galaxy from you. Why do you care what I'm? Wait a minute. The concept of distance. I'm on the other side of the galaxy. What? I could say, well, you're in the next neighborhood. You're on the other side of the continental divide, or but you're on the other side of the galaxy. Wait, where did that thought come from? You see, where did it all come from? Well, I've read a lot of science fiction books. I've seen a lot of science fiction movies. Okay, but where would I come up with that conversation? From the universe, apparently. I dreamed it up. Dreamed. Hey, Barry, you got that coon? Is he dead? Or did you catch him dead? Graveyard dead. So, but with our universe of things, listening to other people, and listening to young children up to about the age of 7 or so, sometimes a little longer, with children who have vivid imaginations and the stuff they come up with. Now, here's the thing. Here's a 5-year-old And had I've had conversations with 5 year olds that blow your dang mind. And it's like the attention to detail. Well, Mr. Dave, I was driving in a spaceship and I was doing something. And my brother, he was doing something with me. And we were doing something. And there was a thing over here, and there was and there's this 5 or 6 year old that, okay, so they have probably watched a space movie or two, but the amount of detail that these young children have imparted. Where did they get the fill-in information? Where did they know that there was this planet on such and such and it went around the solar system, and they traveled down these moonbeam things, and then it's like, what? A 5 or 6 year old talking about these types of things and the detail. Um, doing play with young ladies at their tea table when they go into, and they're having, and Miss Sally, she went to the store and she did such and such, and you're like, what? And Miss Sally went to the store. Well, okay, but the amount of stuff that Miss Sally does along the way and what she's involved in and all this stuff, and it's like, where did this 6 year old get all this detail? Oh, they'll be knocking over your garbage cans now. But so, again, one of the things that has not necessarily been bothering me, but for some reason recently, it's like I can understand the premise and the basis for dreams that involve things that we have done in our lifetime or experienced, or maybe read a book or something, seen a movie and you follow along. But then what about the things you ain't seen no movie, you ain't read no book? As far as you know, you haven't witnessed any spacemen landing in your yard. Um, but then how did you, why did you have a dream of having a picnic with somebody more than once, a reoccurring kind of thing? But the settings changed slightly, but it was always on the blanket. It was always in the park. It was always, you know, there was always a tree down over here, and the lake pond thing over there, and there was always, it was, the setup was always the same, at least 10 times. Okay, over the course of at least a year, if not more. So, and at times was having conversation and was going to go play frisbee with the kids, and the next thing I know, and it's like I'm sitting here and the dog's barking, and I go, well, wait, I was just having a picnic, you know. Whoa, but that was weird. I mean, just literally get pulled out of the dream and pop back here. So that's always fun. But where did all the fill in come from? Well, I'm lonely and I'm single and I want to have a relationship, and I love picnics and sitting in the park. Okay. And frisbee's still okay, even at my age and back. And all right, okay. So, but why am I still going back to the same place? why is this lady who seems familiar, but I don't know who she is really? Um, and I'm never. I look at her. She's part of the deal. We laugh and everything's groovy, but she's not like the focus. Okay, that's one thing I noticed. The wifey is not the focus of these dreams. Somehow it's the setting, right? Okay, so why that? And why these certain things that are in the dream every time? You know, there's the Lake Pondy thing, there's the tree down here, there's the blankie, there's a certain things got to be there. Why? Why is the brain want these details? Is there somebody in the universe going, wait, now, having worked in radio, you have what's called a cart. All right. The cart is sort of looks like what an 8-track cassette looks like, right? And these carts are, made in such a way that they are looped. You've got 5-minute carts, 10-minute carts, 15-minute carts, 30-minute carts. And what it means is that it will run 30 minutes continuous and then do a blip and it will start over. Okay. Or you can chop that 30 minutes up into segments, but you can have 30 minutes worth of commercials on one cassette tape. So it's almost like, the spirit guides have got different cassette tapes of like, well, what timeline we on now? I don't know. Let's pop this one in and see what happens. Oh shit, that's where he goes to that party, and oh man, let's watch this one. This is funny. This is the spirit guides, right? So they put in a cart um to like play a certain thing, and it's like it's commercial of the day, come on down to Bob's, hey Bob, how you doing? Um, or Babette. So, but the universe, there's so many things that people are, it's like they're experiencing these different things. Okay, but where are they getting it from? They're having these dreams of experiences. Well, I wonder what it would be like to trip. Alternate life timeline. Yes. It's sort of where I want this. Oh God, I've been on here an hour and a half already. Yap, 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 yap. Want to identify as a or something. There's been two different movies, stories, or whatever that I've seen within the last 2 days that have been about alternate timelines. And one was, just explaining the basic physics, that that our me being here tonight, this morning, and having conversation, we have I have created a new timeline. It's basically because I started it, right? Um, so because I'm having conversation this morning with y'all, I have created I have changed y'all's timeline because you didn't know I was going to be here. You didn't know if I was going to be here or what I would talk about. And now here you are interacting with each other. You didn't know that beforehand, right? You might have guessed, you might have thought, well, I wonder if Hawkeye's going to be on tonight or something. Okay, so that could have been a dream. That could have been Lizard, with the eyes closed, dreaming what a possible future event. Okay, that's all possible, but we didn't know. I didn't know it. Okay. In fact, I was supposed to call Barry back and have a conversation. And then I was like, well, he'll probably catch me if I go live stream. So here I am, and he caught up. But I didn't know it till I did it. So, but by having the conversation and by having this conversation about dreams and where did they come from, have altered timelines, because even if there's only 8 of you here, where you're thinking about it. So by thinking about it, your thoughts, whatever you're thinking about, is going into the quantum. It's being part of the thought process. So we have created our own timeline with this conversation this morning. Really? So, but what does this, but we're our own little sideline timeline. It's our own personal timeline. Yeah, the world's still out there. Yeah, Trump's still up, and yeah, Putin's still up, but yeah, and Israel, yeah, but our timeline personally, you're sitting at where you're at, hopefully comfortably, and, have a coffee for me. Uh, but it changed your timeline because you decided to tune in and listen and participate. And because I'm live and in color, the timeline is open to anyone who wants to join in with us and participate in tonight's discussion about dreams, which could change their timeline. And someone else coming on and participating could bring up a topic that would change all of our timelines in the way we think about something. They could come up with something really wise and witty, and we'd all read it, watch it, commentate on it, and then we'll react to it in our own ways, right? So, which would alter that timeline. All of that's possible, and we're pursuing one of those timelines now. But at the end of this, though, okay, it's time to go. Dave's gotten tired. I don't want to. I do not want to do 4-hour videos anymore, even though I'm probably likely to do it. But the idea of the dreams, though, where does this stuff come from? I believe that almost 100% of us population, human population at least, has had or is having dreams of things that they have never experienced before. People riding horses ain't never been on a farm. People are in spaceships that, ain't never, don't know how to drive a car. Just whatever. Why? Hey, Lucky, what do you do? Life is but a dream. Row, row, row your boat. Okay, next one. Row, row, row your boat gently down the row, row, row your boat gently down the row. Anyway, never mind. You got me started, Lucky. It's your fault. But so, and see, that started a different timeline because now we're singing. But anyway, get that song out of my head. But but in this day and time with the different things going on, I'm talking openly about UFOs in Congress and this and that, you know, um, rockets going off and sky rockets in light, afternoon delight. Anyway, uh, afternoon delight. Anyway, had to finish the but so having thoughts in different venues in our brains, things that we may have never done or only thought about doing or dreamt of doing it, right? Like lizard. I dreamt of you, snake. Come on in under the rock. I dreamt of you because I can tell that you ate a mouse and you're not going to try to eat me. Come on under my rock, right? As the story goes. So he dreamt of snake. So not necessarily that we're dreaming of snakes, but we're dreaming far enough ahead in our future to see what's going to happen tomorrow. You know, I didn't know I was going to be so lazy today, but it started raining. We had a couple of really hard thunderstorms today. Woke up this morning to at like 5:30, thunder and lightning, very very frightening. Hmm, da 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 da. But where do these ideas come from? The universe. But where are these ideas coming from recently? And I think it's because of the different frequencies. Here I go again with the frequencies coming in from the universe. Now, if you listen to any of these folks who are doing space weather, and it's not just suspicious observers, but it's another other couple of folks who are talking about the M class flare that popped off again and the energies that are coming in at this angstrom and that this is going on and that's going on and we're getting hit with and bombarded with the our magnetosphere and the the thing down in the Atlantic anomaly and all these other things, right? These are all things that are happening planet wide. Our brains are mostly water and stuff and things in there and enzymes. And so if we're having magnetic fluctuations in the universe, it could probably is fluctuating our tiny little brains. And so I would say that this increase of people having dreams that they don't have a core basis for. I dreamt I was at the top of the Empire State Building. I I, I think I was King Kong. What? You know, oh well. I'm afraid of heights, and and I'm allergic to fur. I would not be a giant ape man in a dream. Just say it. But I was on a movie set and I was pretending to be King Kong. All right, but the off the wall things that people are dreaming that they don't even want to admit that they're dreaming. They wake up in the morning and the wife's, her hands shaking and hubby's looking at her like, "What's wrong, Marlon? Nothing, nothing." Now she might have fell asleep with something between her legs, and that's why she woke up going like this. But at the same point, though, she might be nervous because she just dreamed some weird something. And she just honestly, it's not that she's freaked out. She don't know how to deal with it because she's never thought about something like this. She's never dreamt anything like this. She's trying to figure out where in the hell in the universe she would even come up with something like this. So there are a lot of people who are having incidents like this now. and have been for a little while. And I absolutely believe it's because of the cosmic waves and the cosmic energies. Because where else would they come up with these strange subjects that they have no basis for? Where are these dreams coming from? Well, let's postulate for a moment and postulate and hyperventilate and cheers. What if we're listening to other beings in the universe through the quantum, through the gooey stuff, right? Because we know, as you know, psychic energy is, that when it happens immediately. There is no click to the microphone, it just happens over whatever distance it happens. Spooky activity at a distance. Einstein something. Spooky action at a distance, I think. But so maybe we're listening in the quantum to other people's realities. It's not my reality. I just happen to be, not on purpose, mind you, but I just so happen to be eavesdropping on somebody else's, life, or maybe it's their dreams. Maybe it's just their story of their life, and you pick it up, and the next thing you know, you're dreaming about, you know, Eva Bengali on Venus, and what? Venus is supposed to be too hot. Not inside. Anyway. So you say, Hawkeye, that's absurd. Is it? Well, we're on planet Earth. And so everything's groovy. So I've not ever had the experience of being a Russian astronaut. But there are Russians who are astronauts and who have been astronauts, and their memories and their stories are in the quantum because it happened, because they experienced it. Their experience, just like what I talked about for the first hour and a half, different experiences with me are in my quantum. They're in my reality. They're stuck in the goo in my brain of stuff that's happened to me or have I experienced. But now, so, I'm looking out the window from the Soyuz capsule. Never been to, and I've never been to Spain, and I kind of like the music. Anyway, so I've never been to Russia, but I have watched some movies in Russian, but I got to read the lines. There's something about listening to Russian, or that Balkan kind of. Anyway, especially when certain women speak like Natasha, never mind. So, but the experience of a Russian cosmonaut, that experience is in the quantum field. Just like, Bibi Netanyahu, for God's sakes, back in the day, way back in the day, Jimmy Carter, bless his soul, passing, he was 100, right? Or 99. And June Lockhart, 100 years old, lost in space. Everybody give her a thumbs up, right? She still looks good too after all these years. God bless her. Um, her experiences have been mushed into the quantum. You know, she was the first mother in space, lost in space. She was that, um, Will Robinson and Robot and, you know, and that calming mother, she was the first mother on a spaceship, June Lockhart, and, she's 100 years old. But that is part of my memory, So those episodes, and some of her actions and everything are locked into my meathead in my quantum, but it's also in the general quantum of the universe. So there could be somebody who's never watched the original Lost in Space, who doesn't have a clue what I'm talking about, her being the first mother on a spaceship, right? On TV, um, in a series. Anyway, but that they hear that June Lockhart is 100 years old. And then somebody said, well, she was in Lost in Space. And so, yeah. So, but then they go home and take a nap. And, it was fresh on their mind. June Lockhart, Lost in Space, blah, 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 blah. And she has this little dream of Lost in Space with June Lockhart. Never met her, never saw the thing. It's just that she's been able to pick up different things and has tied them together in a nap that she takes, a little dream that she has, right? Very possible, very easy, but you never saw it, but could tie things together because there's so much information in the quantum field, right? Where June Lockhart was. So, Alice goes to sleep and all of a sudden she's dreaming of Will Robinson and Penny. And a lot of guys had a crush on Penny, back in the day. Um, you had to be 12. you know, you had to be 12. Um, but but this information is already pressed into the quantum. It's already been recorded. It's other folks have, probably watched in their dreams something over the years. Okay. But what if, Alice is having dreams of Muwaka, who's got this slightly, face that bird like, um, a different kind of hue, a little beakish on the facial expressions and stuff, and their hair is more like a synthetic feather, if you will. Now, where in the hell did she pick that up? So Alice is not just dreaming of June Lockhart and Lost in Space. Maybe watched an episode, black and white. But now she's dreaming of this falcon looking person, peacock possibly, and with these different bird like manners, and acting different ways and blink, 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 and look with one eye and then with the other, and, act like Barry's dead chickens and oh, that was bad. So, okay, we can see why you could be dreaming of one thing. It's space, it's this, it's that. Okay. But then how now are you dreaming about bird kind of people in a different kind of setting when you, as far as you know, have not had any kind of reference to bird people or this thing or whatever, but now you're dreaming it. Where'd you get it? Well, I dreamt of this and that. And it's like, okay, that's really, you got some interesting characters in there. Have you ever thought about any of those characters before? No, sir. Well, then where do you think you dreamed this shit up from? I don't know. It just came to me. Well, but here's the thing. What if somebody else had it on the other side of the planet? What if me dreaming of, you know, being or meeting a Soviet cosmonaut in space, mind you, looking out the window, you know, going, "Ooh, look, there's Russia right there," you know, or hey, there's Georgia, and I mean in the United States. Where's Georgia in Russia? You know, oh, that's on the end. We got to wait till we get there, Dave. Oh, okay. So having a conversation with a cosmonaut in Rusky, and what am I doing in spaceship? You know, that thing would be cool, but I'm afraid of heights now after all these years. Um, what about a Rusky? I don't have any issues with Russian people, not at all. Um, what about this? What about where did I get the information? Where did I get the fill in? Well, you know, I've heard about cosmonauts, and but I've never wanted to talk to one. You know, have a conversation. Never thought about like joining them in the Soyuz or something. Never thought about. So where did my brain pick up all this other stuff to have this lucid dream? Well, Dave, you know, you got a vivid imagination. Yeah, but this was real. There are things that I imagined, ducks crossing the street and talking to me and stuff. Yeah, okay. But, you know, then there are specific things, like looking at the dials on the wall of the spaceship, and it's like, looking out the window, did this things, right? How did my brain fill in the blanks? And I'm saying, I think that our collective brains, our brains are filling in the blanks from other people's experiences that are in the cosmic goo library right now. Oh, but it could be cosmic goo library from 1,000 years ago, too. The cosmic goo has a lot of impressions in it, right? So, but what about conversations of some of the Christos people on the planet Jupiter, as Dante had talked about? So, the whole colony of folks on Jupiter, what maybe their conversations are pressed into the cosmic goo, which they are. What about the bad lizard people that want to do us harm? Um, you know, their thoughts and ambitions and things are pushed into the cosmic goo. So, those of us who have fears of being eaten by a lizard or a dinosaur or something could stem from somebody having been eaten by a dinosaur, and that, Billy Bob was screaming all the way, "Don't eat me! Ah! Gobble, 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 gobble," right? So then how does it feel so real to you? Because Billy Bob's experience of being eaten is then been recorded. I hate to use the word Akashic record, but it's been recorded into the library of stuff. right? Into the quantum field. So for every experience that's going on now, that's all being recorded into the earth field. So it can be accessed, those things that happened in the past. So why have I had this dream of being in the Wild West with Wyatt Earp? You know, I watched a lot of cowboys. Yeah, but there's certain things that I found out later on after the dream. I'm like, well, how did I know this? And about a certain place or a town or something about Deadwood. What about Kansas? You know, um, listening about Wyatt Earp, and then something comes on YouTube about Wyatt Earp, and you read about it anyway. So there's a string of events that you learn about something that crosses your path, a subject, right? So, but then there will be, for me, there was certain information that came in during a dream that was not on any of the literature that I had been getting physically, right? Literature. Yeah. Well, stuff I was reading and listening to, and another thing about Wyatt Earp. Let me listen to this. So then there was something that came up, and it was something in my dream, and I was like, son, let me look that up. And when I looked it up, I was dead on. And I was like, now, how did I know to look up this item? I'm making this up right now, but I'm not. I can't remember what it was, but I'm making this part up. His shoe size, right? He had a size 12. Wyatt Earp had a size 12 shoe. I'm making this up. I don't know. Okay, because I can't remember the thing. It had something to do with his gun or his belt. Anyway, um, so anyway, I looked it up for my own, curiosity, but it was in my dream. And it was clearly in my dream. It had something to do. And then when I looked it up, I was like, oh, holy cow, he really did have a size 12 or something. I don't remember ever seeing it in Wyatt Earp in the on the TV program, maybe, but this was just so vivid, a size 12 shoe, blah 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 blah. And then there was something that Cookie on Wagon Train, who did the cooking. And there was something, and it was like, I was sitting around the fire and Cookie come up and said, and there were things like that was like, but things that the person said in the dream, that was like, yeah, sitting around, did they say that in an episode? Well, there was one time where I had the dream that there was a conversation with Cookie around the campfire, not eating, liking his cooking or something, blah, blah, blah. And it was the next day, I'm watching my afternoon wagon train thing. And lo and behold, Cookie comes out and repeats in the dialogue almost exactly word for word what I heard him say in my dream the night before or two. And I was like, well, that was weird. I mean, like word for word. Now, I've watched a lot of Wagon Train and a lot of, this and that and Laramie and, but to have heard him, the whole scenario in my dream of him standing at the end of the chuck wagon and him saying these words, and I'm like, exactly. The next day, exactly. And I was like, did I preview that episode in the quantum? Because somebody was getting the film ready and everything, and they were setting it up to show it for the next day, and the next day's episode on TV. So did I pre-watch, you know, that episode to where I had seen exactly that particular scene and those exact words? Because back at that time, I was also doing a lot of theater. So, remembering lines and going back over things. And I was like, maybe I watched this episode before, and my brain was going, no, you didn't. No, you didn't. You know, but you listened word for word. Yeah, Dave, I know. But remember that other time when, yeah. So in the universe of things, sometimes, like Lizard, we get previews of future events. And sometimes it's just a scene out of a Wagon Train episode or something that Rowdy Yates said, or that something, Marshall Dillon said to Miss Kitty, or vice versa. And I'm sorry, that Marshall Dillon. For 20 years, everybody wondered if him and Miss Kitty ever got it on. Just say it. Inquiring minds want to know. But anyway, so in the scheme of dreams, so we have good night, F Kitty. I'm fixing to go out too. My eyes are watery and my drops are over here, and it's time for me to take my meds. Plus, I'm trying to keep things, it's been 2 hours almost now. So, but in the scheme of things, I think the dreams are coming from the quantum field. That's coming from the universe. And you go, well, wait a minute now. Well, but so there are aliens who have stuff that's in the quantum field too. So we're not just picking up each other, but we're picking up all kinds of stuff in the quantum field of the universe. So you have a dream about a one-eyed, flying purple people eater, flying purple people eater. So like things to me. But anyway, so now the flying purple people eater. So, but back in the day when that was a popular song, there were people having dreams about flying purple people eaters, and everybody had their own version of the flying purple people eater, because the record came out over the radio and people only heard what the flying purple eater was, right? The one horn, one eye, flying purple. Okay, so we've established that. We don't know how big it is. We don't know how big his head is. We don't know if it's got, big ears or not. It doesn't say anything about its mouth, but it's a flying purple people eater. So, how big are the wings? Do they eat us all at once, or if do they gobble us and munch on us, or do they swallow us whole? So, but there was this thing about, you heard what the flying purple people eater was, but you didn't see it. So people's imaginations came up with different scenarios as to what the critter looked like. And back in the day, people come up with all kinds of different versions of the flying purple people eater. And I don't know if they ever really came up with like one version, but to the point, nobody saw a picture of it, but everybody saw a picture of it in their head. So then that got transpired to people writing stuff down and doodling stuff. And I wonder if it looked like this. And, so we can draw pictures in our brain from just certain key words: one horned, one eyed, flying, purple people eater. Now, was it purple or did it only eat purple people? Not clear. We dream of these facts, we dream of the differences. Our brains fill in the blanks from these things, and it comes from the dreams of others in the universe. It's you and me putting our thoughts out there. Other people are having thoughts. Other entities are having thoughts and leaving their imprints in the universe. How come somebody can come up with some of this, wild Stephen King stuff? You know, Unfortunately, some of that stuff's in the quantum field too. Horror. There's horrible things that have been done in the name of the king. Um, but those things, those impressions are imposed into the library, the Earth's library. I hate to use it, but the Akashic record of the Earth, you know, of peoples and things and stuff. So where do our dreams come from? The collective. Some of the dreams are ours, we own them because there are so many key things that we've experienced ourselves, or I'm dreaming of going to Barry's house. I can remember what certain roads looked like when I drove out there before. I can remember what, driving across the bridge over the Mississippi, coming out of Memphis, going into Arkansas. uh, Different things that I remember. Now, the interesting thing is to go back and see these things and see how, if my memory was correct, which there'd been times where not so good. But in our dreams of things, there have been times I thought that I felt that my thought was an original when my original thought of it wasn't true. My vision of what happened was somebody else's because it wasn't mine when I got down to the facts. Ooh, must have been thinking about somebody else. So, a lot of energies, a lot of different thoughts, a lot of different personalities, a lot of different stuff in the quantum. Where do our dreams come from? We could start there. So, my friends, it's been 2 hours and 3 minutes. Gonna do it 20 on the way out of here. I love you all. Be careful because there really are a lot of strange thoughts winging around out there in the universe. And some of these thoughts might be coming from a distant planet on the other side of the Milky Way. I love you too, Chloe. I got to take, I got to do eye drops and take my meds. So, but my eyes are doing okay. I just got to keep taking the drops for another 2 or 3 weeks, which is fine with me. What was your exact question? Oh, new moon. Thank you, F. Kitty. But so y'all be safe. Y'all, you know, if you're having strange dreams, don't get your stuff in a wad, because you could be having, thoughts of, somebody on the other side of the planet. You know, I could be having coffee and conversation with that Russian cosmonaut. For whatever reason, I had that dream. I don't know. I never thought about it, uh, regular, but okay. So, but anyway, I continue to pray that each and every day, that each and every one of you will continue to learn how to accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, the wisdom, and the many blessings from the universe. Because it comes out of the quantum. It's part of where our dreams come from, and et cetera, et cetera. So I continue to pray that everybody will, n- not necessarily take a pill, but will sit down and listen to the universe. Because the universe is talking, and it's talking in dreams, it's talking in riddles. And oh, I think I said it earlier. I took a sideline trip day before yesterday down to my woods back yonder. And I was riding on my little scooter, and me and Duggar was out and about, and picked up the mail and coming back down the driveway, and was looking down along the fence line, and it was like, man, I'm just going to drive down there and see what it looks like. Yeah, I don't need to go back in the house right away. I'm having fun riding on my scooter. And so I go to bumpity bumpity down. I go down to the place that I've been mowing it for years, right? So every time I go down with the little scooter, I got to move some pine cones out of the way because it don't like pine cones. It's really like this far off of the ground, and it goes over stuff really well. But there are limbs and things and stuff, mostly pine. And so I get off the scooter, push them out of the way so it's easier for the scooter to go down there. And so I go down and I'm riding around. I go down, I get off a time or two, and I get down to where the land dips down into the low spot. And as I'm getting down along there, I spot a feather. And I go, oh, look, a turkey feather. Ooh, wow. Get off the scooter, turkey feather. There's one, Driving down a little further, something catches my eye, stop, and I turn around, and I'd already went past it, and there was another feather. I mean, clean, fresh, not been out in the weather long. That's two. Then I down to the bottom land, right? And I'm moving limbs out of the way so I can go through with the scooter. I want to see how far I can get, right? And I'm walked by this one tree, and I get this feeling like, look down, it's over here, It's the game that I've been playing for a long time, hide and go seek. Spirit leaves me things. And so at the bottom of this tree trunk, the bottom of the tree trunk, I look down, and here is a deer antler. Now you see how brown it is? It was up against it was up against the bottom of the tree and matched. It was like, thank goodness I had two good eyes the day I went down there. Because the difference, this looked like a, a limb. It looked like a piece of tree limb. It did not look in any way like a deer antler. And since it's a fresh one, and it's a yearling, it's off a young deer, and looks like it's been popped out not too long ago, really. But there's also shows. Can you see that right there? These little white spots right there. That's where something has nibbled on it. Yes, my friends, because there are all kinds of critters that need to get calcium and stuff, and so uh, there are chew marks. I've seen turtles chew on things like this, and even insects will chew on deer antler. So, but anyway, here's the thing. I wasn't planning on going down there. I was just, Creator said, right down, right down this way. Now it was really hot the other day. It was like 98 in the shade. Had no business being out there riding around in the heat in my condition. But everything worked out fine. I did not exert myself overly. And I found the feathers are outside. Otherwise, I would show them to you. So I found two really nice feathers that weren't just laying out. They were not like, ooh, look, there's a. No, I had to, like, they were hidden feathers. Viewable, seeable. I spotted them, but they weren't just, I didn't stumble over them. I didn't stumble over this. I was moving tree limbs out of the way so I could get through there in my little scooter. And there was something was tugging at me, and I went over to my right and up a little bit, and I'm looking around and looking around. I'm not thinking about finding anything. All right. I wasn't searching for anything. I hadn't been down there in a while, and I literally was just looking around. And then when something I felt, what, there's something around here I'm supposed to get? Yeah, yeah. Oh, holy crap. What's that? This. So you've heard me talk, if you've been around me a while, you've heard me talk about going down in the woods and finding the deer antler, and that pair of deer antlers I found down on the river that time. And so then I recently found a skull of a deer that was down in that area. And down just the other day, just down there picking up tree limbs so I could get my scooter through. And lo and behold, I come up with another deer antler, not looking for him, but, and the two feathers. So two feathers and an antler. And after I picked up the antler, I was looking back up the hill, and I was like, within 150 feet, I've got picked up three gifts from the Creator: two feathers and an antler. Just by following a little bit of intuition. Intuition says, hey, go take your scooter down. Well, come on, you're on your scooter. It's got a full charge, and you got a drink there, and you know, just take a ride down there. It's shady. It's not too bad. It was 98 shade, but to the point though, went down there and followed that little bit of intuition. Two feathers in an antler. Now, to a lot of people, big deal. To me, the universe leaves messages. The universe, after all these years, after all this time, I still got it. What do you mean, Dave? I still got it. I still can find the gifts that Creator leaves. And it's a talent. And a lot of folks don't have it. And I'm very blessed that I do. But it's also in that, am I paying attention to the universe? Am I doing a good job? Am I fulfilling my contract to the Creator and to my spirit guides and to Mother Mary? Am I fulfilling my contract? Two feathers and an antler in 150 feet, roughly. Amen. I thank you to the spirits. I thank you to the universe, you know, So when folks say, well, big deal, what do you know? Well, I know that if you follow your instincts, there are things that the creator will leave for you. Especially, I didn't know that I needed a little bit of, and I've said this before, I didn't know that I needed a little pick me up. In other words, finding the antlers, like, ooh, finding feathers are cool too, but finding antlers, oh, yeah, buddy, right? So, but over the last couple of years, it's been like at least one. I found the pair of antlers. I found the deer's head with the antlers. Now this year, I found this antler, and wasn't looking for any of them. I was just walking around. But walking around, you have to always be observant. So, cheers to being observant. In life, you got to be observant. I mean, you say, well, Hawkeye, what does it matter? You never know. There could be $100 bill laying on the ground if you're observant enough. I know I saw a $20 bill literally fly across the parking lot one time, younger, was up in the North Georgia mountains, was just visiting, went to the store, was being poor, had barely got up there, and was like, man, I really could use some extra money, and there's a $20 bill literally going across the parking lot. I chased it down and we went into there and bought a pack of hamburgers and some buns and and yeah, and cooked out that night. Yum yum. But anyway, you never know when the creator is going to leave things for you. Now there are some folks that are like don't give a rip, right? But even if you don't give a rip, you should be observant because sometimes not giving a rip can get you into trouble. And sometimes there are times when you shouldn't give a rip. It's like, don't get your panties in a wad, mister. Don't give a rip, But to all things universal, we are all made out of, we are all made up of frequencies. The universe ain't nothing but frequencies all over the dang place. Our thought patterns are frequencies. You probably know where I'm going with this. Our thoughts are frequencies. Our dreams are frequencies. And so, what did Brian always say? Be the frequency you want to receive. And I just want to say, y'all, continue to be observant, accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, the wisdom, and the many blessings from the universe. Cheers one more time. Be observant. It don't cost nothing. Doesn't hurt anything. Two feathers and an antler with 150 feet from where I found the first feather to the antler, approximately. Just saying. I could have went another direction. I could have went to the other side of the property. I could have other. I could have not went because it was hot. I could have just, but in that I took the trip extra, that I was being nudged by my spirit guides. Take a ride on down. Well, yeah, okay, but it's hot. Go on down. First feather, yeah, I'll ride a little further. This is cool. Then you find the next one, and then oh, this is cool. And then I wasn't expecting on finding nothing. When I found this sitting at the bottom, of a tree. Um, I've cut. It's dark. The dirt down there is really it's black. It's dark. It's a part that stays flooded a lot. It ain't now. So and a lot of brown leaves and things, and so and this was not just sitting out. It was at the look like it was part of the root system. So, but anyway, the universe believes you things if you believe. And when I got back, I was shaking my head, going, I just went for a little ride. I wasn't going to find anything. I wasn't searching for anything. I wasn't asking the universe to give me any positive reinforcements or anything. I was just taking a ride on my dead brother's scooter. That sounded crude, didn't it? Well, he's dead, and he was my brother, and it was his scooter. So all those are true. Um, but then, to find little niblets like this, and then to see shoe marks on it from tiny little critters that needed, some calcium. And, uh, you know, the universe speaking to me in the woods again, still. And the fact that, one of the reasons why I'm cleaning the trail is so I can get down there easily, so I can go down there more often. And the fact that the scooter is electric and so quiet, I need to move all of the pine cones and limbs out of the way so I don't it doesn't make noise when it goes over something, right? Because it's so quiet. Now I can sneak up on the deer and anything else that might be down there in the woods. So it's giving me access to my property that I've not been able to have because of my back hurting and my heart condition. Because Rob was on me tonight. He was like, "You went down there on on your scooter when it was hot?" And I was like, "Yeah." "Did you have your phone?" And I said, "Yes, sir, I did." "Well, did you have a drink?" "Yes, sir. I made me a little drink holder on the front." And yes, and the scooter, I could get if something happened, I could get back to the house in like 2 or 3 minutes. Especially if I turned it on high. Um, but so yes, I'm being careful. Yes, and he's like, "Well, take your phone if you're gonna go riding around like that." Um, and I'm like, "Well, you can assure that if the scooter's gone and the vehicles are here, I must be in the woods." And there's only two places right now that are even cleared out a little bit, and they're on both sides of the property, that are wide enough, cleared up enough that I could get my scooter in. So you don't have to worry about me being over there or over here. Nah, I'm going to be in specific places. So uh, you'll be able to find me easy. Was my point, And he's like, "Okay, all right." So, and when I get the lawnmower cranked up, I'll go down and mow it again and clear out more stuff. So I will be able to ride around on my scooter, but to the point still, when the creator just taps you on the shoulder and says, "Let's go for a ride." I used to go for a walk, and I ain't give up on that yet either. But, you find things along the way. Does it matter? To me, it does. It's gifts from the universe are always a, a blessing. So to other people, yeah, big deal, right? To me, it says the universe is still talking. The universe is still talking to me, but I relate it to that because I always think about other folks too. I can't help it. But, it's like, well, I found two feathers. Anybody else find a couple of feathers today? Anybody else getting messages from the universe? Anybody else getting a positive reinforcement from the creator and from the spirit guides? Anybody else? So, and then I find the antler, and I'm like, woo, 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 talk about a win, right? So, anybody else find something like an antler today? Anybody? So, or in my brain, I'm like, I found an antler today. What did you find? Were you observant enough today to find anything that creator might have left along the way for you? A blue jay feather, or a something, or just um or maybe you saw a turtle or a lizard or a critter, and that's special. You might not be able to take it home with you, but you might have spotted one. There might have been a chipmunk sitting on the doorstep, waiting for you to bring it a cracker or something, whatever. Um, but it's up to us to determine whether or not that kind of thing is important to us. And Hawkeye, why do you say that? Well, I know y'all are, but the most general public out there, you know, how much of this do any of these folks care about? And not just finding bones or feathers or whatever, but being observant and finding things, being observant in the plant that somebody's machine is going bad and you kept somebody from getting a belt coming off and hitting them in the head and killing them or something, or hurting them bad, or and so it's like you can be observant in a lot of ways. Grab a kid by the back of the shirt, keep them from getting run over by a semi tractor trailer or something. Just there are a lot of things to be observant about, and sometimes it's because we need to pay attention to our frequency. If our frequency is too scattered, we can't pick up nothing. Sometimes all we pick up is noise from the universe. But if we sort of have a mellow attitude and we're turning the dial kind of slow rather than and you're going a little bit at a time. You go to and God loves you, Jesus, and everybody. And now we're going to listen to the time is now 12:35 local, and you go to the next station. So and then you find one that's playing some mellow stuff, and you're like, ooh, I really like this. And you kick back and you're hearing little messages coming in through the music that's being played, and you're getting messages just in your thoughts from the music that's being played. And wow, dreams can come from music too. Messages in the music, in the notes, and in certain keys, and in certain, ooh, that's another place that we are getting information from the universe. So if we pay attention, we get more information so that we can tell where our dreams are coming from, or at least likelihood, and possibly even encourage dreams from the universe, from just out in wacky world. Come on in, wacky dream. Let me look at you. It's better than watching TV. To the wacky, wacky world, I want to see a wacky, wacky dream. Cheers. Be safe, my friends. There's a lot of wacky people out there. A lot of wacky people want to try to make you crazy. Find out the facts for yourself. There's so many. I'm so tired of hearing people, folks calling me on the phone. Did you know that Donald Trump is going to cut all your Medicare and Medicaid benefits, and you're going to he's going to cut it from all them damn you know asylum seekers. That's what he's going to cut. Have you not read what they're not going to do? But these folks call you 3 or 4 times before lunch today. I got phone calls from people. You got to have this, and it's like, my name is Harold Johnson, and I am calling you to tell you what president is. Click, no, you ain't, sorry, not today. Click. Oh, so sorry. But these folks try to change your dreams. They try to change your reality. They're trying to scare people to death. And I just want to just slap them. Backhand them once, maybe twice. Because it's like you're literally out and out lying. From everybody who's been like, I'm holding the bill right here, and it says, we're not cutting nothing, y'all. Nah, they just turn up and making the same lie over again and broadcast it out there. Oh, they're cutting the benefits. And what's her name? 51,000 Americans will die if this bill goes through. If Senator Warren, that Pocahontas, 51,000 Americans will die if they pass. 51,000? I mean, she was like very specific, like, well, you got a list or something, But anyway, don't let them flood your dreams with misinformation. They're pressing that information out there into the universe as hard as they can go. We have to be able to see the truth, accept it, because we're observant human beings. And knowing that this crazy woman, 51,000 people will die if this bill is passed. Really? And she kept saying 51,000 people will die. And I'm like, what? She's being very specific. She's got 51,000 people are going to die if this bill is passed. That woman's crazy. But in her dreams, that's how many people are going to die. That's how many people she's projecting are going to die. That's how many people she wants to die, so that her prognostication will come true. Think about that one. It's true. She wants 51,000 people to die so that she can get on the news and say, see, I told you there weren't but 48,000, but I told you. Or what would even be better is 55,000 people would die. And I told you. So in our dreams of things, the universe sometimes will scream at us to pay attention. Sometimes it's a general nudge, like take your little scooter and go down the edge of the woods down here. We got something for you. And then there are times when the universe says, get inside. There are, giant rocks coming out of the sky. There are heat temperatures. The the UV is up, and you're going to get skin cancer. Um, all right, take heed, my friends. Be the frequency you want to receive. And until next time, keep it between the ditches. And Miss Chloe, I'm going to put in eye drops and take my meds. So peace out. Cheers, everybody. I love you. Be safe. Adios.